What is up, guys, and welcome back to OWL By the Numbers, your one-stop spot for all things Fantasy Overwatch League. I am your host, Tumbling Drunk, and tonight on episode number 23, we'll be taking a look at the fallout following the Atlanta homestand, let you know what's going on in Fantasy Overwatch League this week with the playoffs, and of course, we'll get you primed for this week's Stage 3 playoffs ahead of that, and of course, help you out with your pick'ems and, letting you know who we are favoring in these matches. But before we can jump into the agenda for tonight and introduce you to my co-hosts, let me just take a moment to thank everyone who is heading out with us tonight on Twitch for our live show, and of course to thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me tonight are two of my co-hosts. We have the King Adonar and Lord Ramses. So, it's been an interesting week. Interested in the fact that really not much happened. We kind of had, the Overwatch League roster lock happen, and, no announcements. We're expecting, potentially, new hero announcement, or, summer game update, things like that. That hasn't happened yet. We're waiting for 222 updates. That's been nothing. And really, this past weekend worth of games, left a lot to be desired, to say the least. But Ed, how has this past week been treating you?
It's been good. Yeah, it was 4th of July weekend. So I had a nice 4-day weekend away from work, spent it with the family. Lots and lots of day drinking, which I'm totally okay with. Fantasy this weekend it's crappy. It's one of those things where when you only have 8 teams playing and 6 of those 8 teams are trash, it makes fantasy not that fun, considering you don't want to drop any of your players to start them. We're seeing some weird trends now in fantasy Overwatch, so that's been a bit rough. Mm-hmm. And then, 8.2 dropped, or 8.2 dropped for a while, 3 weeks ago. So I've been playing a lot of that. But overall, been pretty good. I missed last week. But, 5 people would have been a bit much last week, because I would have just talked over all of you. But I was very proud. You guys went an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes without me.
Yeah, that's because I gave a lot of leeway for the interview portion. And besides, just having you here normally is a bit much, let alone having 5 people on.
Yeah, exactly, because I am the king.
King
Adonar.
Yes. we have a king, and now we also have a lord, because, Ramses, you actually won the lord bet against your, Push the Point co-host, Labasco.
So, let's be honest here. The only reason I won the lord bet was because Labasco let me pick first, and how in your right mind do you not pick Mangachu in a 1v1 versus Defran?
I honestly thought you were going to go with the thank God Defran was drunk.
Yeah, I thought he was going to pull it out. He had the comeback coming, and then Mangachu hit him with the weird, you run, you jump, turn around and hit him as you run, so the geometry-wise, you can't hit him back. There's so much Torb hammer tech that is out there that you would never ever use in an actual game, just because when are you going to 1v1 someone like that? But
I did, and we did the complete not strategy portion of it. We just ran straight at each other, and there was no strategy involved.
Yeah, there was no trying to bait the other Torbjorn's overload mechanic at all. It was just straight hammer to the face constantly.
Well, I was just hitting it overload as I was approaching him, so I was just nope, going for it first.
Well, fantasy wise, if we want to talk about lack of strategy here, I almost forgot to put my lineups in. It was literally Sunday morning, 8 a.m. Atlanta time, and I was just crap. All right, not 8 a.m. Atlanta time, but an hour or two before the game, I was crap, I completely forgot. I only had one lineup set, so I had to put in my backup lineup. Mm-hmm. Big F in the chat to anybody who thought Daka was going to play this weekend, and big F in the chat as well to anybody who really trusted Hotba to bring home any meaningful points this weekend.
Yeah, well, that's the nice thing about Daily, though. It's I had Daco in on Saturday. I don't know if you did Totem in any of your leagues. I'm assuming you did, because he was the hot pick for tank. But as soon as I saw him not play Saturday, Sunday, I was just like, not going to risk it, taking him out of my lineups. And
Because
that's
of that.
a big perk to this daily thing.
Yes. I think we also get to see like some players that like don't necessarily get a lot of time actually got a lot of, or at least like good middle of the ground fantasy points. I bought all in on the Nero train this weekend, and I didn't win, but he did decently points wise. So let's see. I'm hoping to see him develop into something more. Also, who was the other person I way overhyped myself on? I really thought that Luffy and Boombox were going to put up more points this weekend, since I thought it was going to be like a pretty contentious game, and not great stats from either of them, if I'm being honest.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I didn't do well this weekend, but that's okay. We go again. We try again. I'm excited for it.
So, with that being said, of course, this week things are going to play out a little bit differently, just due to the fact that this is a stage playoff week. So, in regards to Fantasy Overwatch League, things are going to be a little bit different. So, Ed, why don't you let us know, like, what exactly is going to be going down this week in regards to fantasy options? You're muted.
Shush. Highnoon.gg will only be running pick'ems this week. I'm as muted as the scores on highnoon.gg.
Ooh, boo.
Ooh. Yep, still hasn't updated from like 3 weeks ago, so take that with a grain of salt, pick'ems.
Yeah, we'll see whether or not, like, the new method that he's, like, storing stats is going to be
Yes.
the good thing to do or not.
Yeah, like they're not ignoring it. It's just taking a long time to fix it, and then there's no way for us to verify it's fixed.
Right.
Like from before. That's the big thing, is you can't. They could fix it, and we just don't know if it's actually fixed or not. So that's definitely an issue. But so only pick'ems in highnoon.gg this week. So get those in there. I'm sure we'll be talking about that in our Stage 3 playoffs primer. I'm sure of it. So we won't go through the pick'ems. And then FantasyOWL.com, the Daily League, has games listed for Thursday this week. So go in there, put in your teams. I believe you're only allowed one team in this league.
That is correct.
And it's got some interesting things. I have come to realize, like, I'm going to tell you who I picked actually this week. And the thing I came to realize is...
Here, let me get my notepad out really quick.
Flex tanks just don't play them. Like you're seeing all these flex tanks not actually play, whether they're really good or not. Like, for instance, Janu didn't play some maps last week or 2 weeks ago. Dako didn't play. All these flex tanks are taking maps off or not playing. Like, ones we didn't think were going to be starting, were starting. Yeah, stuff like that. The only for sure ones seem to be main tanks, and they're actually pumping out numbers. Like, the two best tanks last week were Gamsu and Fate. Two main tanks destroyed it. And Fate, no one was even close to Fate in fantasy points. I think the closest one that I saw was 50 points lower than what Fate scored.
Oh damn, that's a huge differential too, especially in
like
daily.
I think it was either Dogman or Baby Bay had like 160 points, and Fate had 220. Like, roughly right around there. So like Fate was, and this is not what we're expecting from main tanks, but with the meta now, you're seeing it. The main tanks are still pumping out the same fantasy numbers as they were with Ghosts, because they're always in the thick of things. They're swinging hammers. They're doing all this stuff. But you're seeing the decline in flex supports, which we've talked about with like Anna being played more. And Anna just doesn't get the healing output or the damage output that a lot of, they were getting with the Transcendence from Zenyatta and the damage from Zenyatta. So you're starting to see the flex supports dip in numbers, but you're not seeing an increase from main support, because you're seeing a lot of we're not getting like bonus points for damage boosted
Mm-hmm.
from Mercy, because you're seeing a lot of Far Mercies. And then damage dealers, you're actually seeing a dip in the numbers there. Because unlike goats, teams are disengaging after one kill. So you're not getting those 6 kills just to win the fight. You're getting one kill, the other team's backing off, and then they wait, and then they go in again. So you're seeing a big dip in, in fantasy points, which can be good or bad. So this week, taking advantage of the system where you only have to have one support, and you can either have 2 to 3 DPS and 2 to 3 tanks, I went with Jake and Nene. Okay, if you saw the highest DPS player this past week was Baby Bay,
Mm-hmm.
and that was because he was also playing Zarya. He wasn't solely on Zarya, but he was actually able to play Zarya, which is where a lot of these DPS are getting their numbers. Jake, I put in there because he's the only one that I can see being a full-time player, like in every map for Houston. So I went with them, and point and dollar-wise. Like, you have to take that into account. Like, Jake is only $16, which is on the low end for the DPS players. And then I went with 3 main tanks. So I went with Gamsu, Muma, and Bumper. So I'm going 3 main tanks, and I'm not taking any flex tanks into all this. And then I'm going with Jonak as my one support, because it's Jonak.
Yeah, so
He's real good.
Just to keep track, the Thursday games that's talking about are you have the Titans, Outlaws, Excelsior, and the Dragons.
Yep. So, like, you don't have a whole lot of options, but that's what I went with, because I wanted to get the tanks in there. So definitely think about that. I have not gone through the Friday matches and set a lineup, but I will more than likely, because Friday you have the Shock vs. Soul, Spark vs. Valiant. I'll probably go a fairly similar route if Thursday pans out. But I will not set my lineup till Friday, until I know how my lineup, like how my thought process worked out on Thursday.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely go sign up, though.
I do want to add that we did get an update from Foul in regards to the games this week in Discord earlier today. I don't have like final confirmation on like what days altogether we are for sure going to have matches, but he basically said, like, just as a heads up, we are going to do contests for Stage Playoffs for people that want to try it, but there's no guarantee that these are going to work. This is still kind of like a trial in this regard, because this is the first time they've actually played during the Stage Playoffs. But he's planning on sending out emails to all of the users on fantasyowl.com. But, outside of that, they're basically, like, full green light for Stage 4, which is coming up here pretty quickly. He did say, like, the site does have match data for the playoffs from the API. It's just a matter of whether or not they're actually going to be recording the scores. So, hopefully, we'll actually get all of that in. And, with that being said, it's important to note, Ed, like this past week, we did have our first Listeners League on Sunday, because we are one of the featured leagues. And,
we had 20 people.
Yeah, we had 21 across the board, which was really good. Now, granted, like, some of them, a couple of people did submit 2 lineups. I know I experimented a little bit with, like, a countdown composition as well as the 2-2-2. And for the most part, it was a very low score in a week across the board. Like, the top score was, like, around 800 points, but there were a lot of people that were, like, mid-700s, low 700s, a couple people below that. But really, across the board for us, it was a rough week. I know Bob did the best out of the 4 of us. He had a 3rd place finish and a 6th place finish. So just to give you an idea of the lineups that I ran and the differential between the points, I did like a countdown one, so I had 3 DPS, 2 tanks, and 1 support. So with that one, I did Sabiolbi, Baby Bay, Libero. I had Hotba and Pokebo for my tank line, and then I picked Animo for my support. That one did 737.91 points, which in that league was 8th. And then my 2-2-2 lineup, I kept Sabiolbi, Erster, Mono, Gamzu, Animo, and Luffy, and that one did 735.19. And that was in 9th place out of 21st. So, not the biggest differential there in regards to that. So, I still need to test, like, the 3 tank variation of this, because I haven't done that yet. But it was interesting to see, like, how close these were, even knowing, like, how good, like, Mono and Gamzu did. I was expecting that one to do a little bit better overall.
Yeah, I went 2-2-2 across for both my teams, and couldn't have had more different outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
I went with my 2 teams. I scored 731 in one, and then 599 in the other.
Oof.
Yeah, and the one I scored 599 on was like, okay, this is the team I feel good about. So like, I went DPS. I went Carpe Diem. I'm like, okay, they're playing. This should be a good matchup.
You mean DM Carpe?
DM Carpe. Carpe didn't even get 100 points.
Yikes.
You know? And to get both of them, I had to go on the cheaper route for tanks. So I went Gods and Hotba. And that blew up in my face. Horrible.
God, even with High Noon, Gods has never been a very good fantasy tank.
Mm-hmm. He was, but this week I think he was only like 11 points.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, he's gonna play. I can get everyone else. And then I went Jonak and Shu, and Jonak did fine. Shu didn't play all the maps,
Right.
so I kind of got the shaft on that one. The one I actually did the best in, where I scored 731, good enough for 10th place. I went Mangachu and Happy as my DPS. So it both scored me over 100 points. And then I went Poco and Hotba. And then Jonak and Dogman. And Dogman was the #1 support this week. So that always helps. But yeah, it was... I'm very interested to see how my 3 tank thing works out this week.
Yeah, so with the 3 tanks, that was actually the composition that secured first place in our listener league, and that was from System 29. I don't have his full lineup written down, but he finished with 835.39 points.
Yeah,
for the week.
He had Gods in the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
So he had Baby Bay, who scored 173, so the top DPS. And then Libero, who was an above average DPS. Then Gamsu, Gods, and Pokepo.
Okay.
And then Dogman was his 1 support.
Right. And I, too, can confirm that our listener league this week for the Sage playoffs will be on Friday. So stay tuned.
Yeah, I was going to be like, let's pick it on Sunday. Pick a 6-person team with 2 teams playing.
Right.
This should be interesting.
So again, like for our listener league this week, that will be Shock Dynasty, Spark, and the Valiant. Which honestly, like, both of those matches are very intriguing.
Those are going to be high scoring for sure.
Oh yeah, those matchups are going to be better than the ones on Thursday for sure.
I mean, unless you're gonna be picking soul players, at which point unless you're picking Marvel, you kind of just got to stir the pot and hope you pick the one that works.
Yeah. God, how did you do this week, Ramses?
I didn't do great. I think I got my lineups got 16th and 17th place respectively, in our listener league.
Respectively.
He's
not respectively.
He's competing against himself. Okay, like.
So I got 16th and 17th. Lineup #1 that I actually felt more like excited about going in was I had Saya player, who he did all right. He got 135. Ding was my big scorer with 161 points. Poco did okay with 115.99. Daco gave me a big fat 0, which, again, this is what I get for not watching the Atlanta game the day before. So I reaped what I sowed on that one. And then Boombox got 126, and Luffy got 101. If anything, I was mostly disappointed in Luffy's performance because we know he has potential to score a lot higher, especially in the more contested games. But I think he's at least in my observance, it felt like he's a lot quicker to either start on the Ana or go to the Ana off of the Zen. So I think there's a lot more time spent on that hero rather than the one that's going to score higher. Line number 2 was I had EQO and then Boombox and Shu were like EQO, Boombox, Shu were like my big 3 like purchases. And then I went with Nero because I was really expecting Nero like to shoot high after a really good day before. And then Poco and Hoppa. And yeah, Shu only played 3 maps, so that didn't go very well. But it's weird because I really think we really thought that like EQO was gonna have a huge weekend, and we thought that all the Fusion players were gonna have a huge weekend. It just didn't really work out that way at all.
Well, we were also expecting that series to be a little bit closer than what it was, but Dragons kind of ran with that. But you know, that being said, the Atlanta homestand has come and gone. For better or worse, we got to see some good, we got to see some bad. We had a couple of woes in regards to the production, especially on that first day, with kind of like the streams kind of like crossing over and the casters like randomly swapping mid-match, which was kind of weird. So hopefully they'll be able to get that patch. But it did seem a lot better on Sunday as opposed to the shit show that was Saturday. But taking a look back at the Atlanta homestand, Ramses, what were some of the takeaways that we had coming out of there?
Well, it's nice. Just comparing it directly to the Dallas homestand, there's a lot to be said for having an Overwatch League event in like an actual feeder, something that's built so that everyone's facing the screen the same way and has a pretty decent viewing angle. Because I wasn't at Grand Finals and I was not at the Dallas homestand, but sorry. In a stadium environment, it seems like a lot of people have to crane their neck, like to turn over. You have so many people in just the room viewing, and it kind of gets loud and cluttered. It seemed like actually there in Atlanta, it was an awesome time and an awesome event, regardless of what happened on the Twitch stream. It seemed a lot more fun. Like they actually had a lot more stuff going on besides like the games. We talked about like the Torb and Widowmaker 1v1s, which I thought were a lot better than, say, let's get 2 guys in Reinhardt costumes to race 15 feet and see if Puckett can make gold out of this material. It seemed like a really, really fun weekend. It was a lot of fun to watch. I mean, asterisk, the games were not that fun to watch, but the whole production itself was a pretty fun time. Special notice to Monty for not quoting or not bringing attention to our meme saviors Clockwork Vendetta and their comp being played in Overwatch League this weekend. Since I know like everyone was Toronto Defiant come out running that comp, and I know everyone was like, yay, they're doing it. And he's like, I've never seen this. This is a brand new comp no one's ever played before. And just all of Twitch chat and all of Twitter got super angsty and mad at him for not quoting a Contenders team. So that was pretty fun. I mean, it was a good weekend.
Well, you know why that was. It's not because he was having an off day. It's because that everyone just forgets about Europe after they got stomped by NA in the showdown.
You.
Bringing it back. Always got to do it.
Bringing it back from all that, though, it seemed like a pretty fun weekend. It was definitely weird as far as seeing who plays in what situations. We talked about Atlanta not playing Dako in at all, which Dako is the better diva. He has the better synergy. He's who you want to go. I understand you might want to run FRD on Sombra, but unless you think you really need a new wrinkle to beat Toronto and to beat Florida, I didn't understand why they would take Dako out, because you would, of course, court the inevitable, like, Dako's in trouble again rumors.
Yeah, it was weird not seeing him in there, and that was my first thought, too, was, oh, Lord, what did Dako do? As far as the Atlanta weekend goes, it was okay. They should have done Atlanta first over the Dallas one, because like look at map for the 4th match of each day. The stadium was like half full.
Yeah,
like
you can see it on camera where like they would pan to the crowd. There's just a big wide empty spot in the middle.
Exactly. And you weren't getting that in Dallas because you had a second home team. Like, Dallas is not a Houston home team, but it's like saying Chicago isn't White Sox territory. Well, it's South Side territory and North Side territory. Like they're close enough in retrospect of like the Overwatch League. If you're a couple hour drive from one city to the next in Overwatch League, you're gonna be rivals. So it's almost like two home teams played in that one. So you had a better atmosphere in the one in Dallas and then the one in Atlanta. Not to say that the atmosphere in Atlanta wasn't awesome, but you started up here, then you went down to here, and then you're gonna go back up to here with the LA one because you have the Valiant and the Gladiators.
Well, and then
who
you
are gonna
also
be-
have Valiant and Gladiators, and you have a bunch of more like they call it rivalry weekend, but there's a lot more like contentious games
Yeah.
that weekend. Like,
Now, going into this, there was no way for them to know that. I mean, going in, you're like, okay, New York, Philly, two awesome teams. Like, when they made the schedule, that is. Like,
Mhm.
Philly's coming off winning the championship. Like, how do you not consider them one of the top tier teams?
we're going to the
Uh,
championship, yeah.
Yeah, going to the championship. And then you have a bunch of the new teams, so there's going to be hype around them. So I don't think it was a bad decision. It just didn't pan out for them this time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I thought they should have done a Philly homestand
Mhm.
instead, because then you're pulling in from New York, you're pulling in from Boston, even Washington a little. Like you're pulling in those fan bases a little bit more. Whereas in Atlanta, who you pulling in fan base wise?
Florida was the only one.
Yeah, and sure, we'll go with that.
They
Well,
were,
and
hey,
that's
they
not-
were
that's-
tens of
yeah.
fans, okay? Tens. Of
Hey, we have it on. We have verifiable proof that at least 5 Florida fans were in attendance.
See? But
That's why they were so quickly drowned out by the Atlanta fans.
yeah, and the fact that Atlanta wasn't the fourth game in each series is just piss poor scheduling.
Well, the only thing I think about that, because like I thought they moved the Dallas stuff around so that Dallas was the last game of each of those times during the homestand weekend for theirs. I think they might have just at this point in the season, I think they might have been legitimately worried that Atlanta loses that game.
So
I understand, and that's why you would still want Atlanta to be at the end just to make sure everybody stays through. It's why you don't have the headliner for like a concert go on halfway in the middle of like a 4-band bill. You want everyone to stay till the end to see the big show.
yeah, like the Dallas weekend, they closed Saturday and Sunday playing against the LA Valiant, who at that time were 0 for, I don't know, 40, whatever they were at.
Like 12, I think.
And then the Outlaws, who were 0 for
They were 0-7.
15.
They
Yeah.
ended that one 0-7.
So it's, I mean, you have the two worst matchups for them, and they still played the least.
And that was really one of the key things too. Like we really only had one match that had a lot on the line, and that was the match between the Shanghai Dragons and the Philadelphia Fusion. I feel like it was like kind of like a culmination of things that weren't necessarily in their control at times. Like because we already saw like the Atlanta versus New York thing pan out at this point since they've already faced each other twice. Like had they had like that grudge match as one of these matches for the weekend, I feel like there would have been a lot more hype built around it just to continue that storyline after, Atlanta picked up the first win. But that second match already happened, and, Atlanta already took both games against New York, which were, as we all know, New York's sole losses in the group stage. But there wasn't enough storylines kind of going into this, and as much as they want to, like, try to make the Atlanta-Florida rivalry happen, like this stuff is going to happen organically. They can't just try to force it to happen. But across the board, like the biggest pop throughout the weekend was for Dafran. It wasn't for the Atlanta Reign. It was for Dafran and the Mangachu 1v1.
Well, they even like, sorry about that. You go.
That's okay.
Well, no, like they even like made Brett made a comment about like the reason he had to do like a little heel turn in the middle of like the him versus Baby Bay 1v1 is because the crowd just like was not excited at all to see Baby Bay. Like it seemed like the main goal, the main objective of this whole weekend was what can we do to really build and cement an Atlanta fan base for this team? at the expense of, hey, let's put the Atlanta game on third instead of fourth in case they lose. Like,
They also, and here's the other thing you have to take into account. They also announced the Atlanta homestand when DeFran was still part of the league.
Right.
And Atlanta was, and even right now, Atlanta is the top cheered team in Overwatch because of DeFran. If DeFran is still on the team, this whole thing is totally different. Not just, hey, come out here in a Phoenix costume and take off the helmet to reveal that you're super drunk. Because he 100% was. He's admitted it. So this isn't just Ed making stuff up. He admitted he was drunk the entire time. And, you know, it's a whole new story if he's actually still on the team. So that sucked for the Overwatch League. I think they jumped the gun on the DeFran hype train a little too early, and they should have gone with a more established franchise. Now, granted, a lot of these teams are only around for 1 year, but they have an established fan base already. And, you know, like I said, Philly would have been great. Boston would have been great because you can get Boston, New York up there. New York would have been a great one too.
Also,
you know,
Boston's in the situation where we actually don't know if they have more than 15 fans. So,
I mean, I just went and looked at the Valiant homestand next stage. Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
Shock, Titans, Gladiators, Valiant, New York, Spark, Dragons.
So all
Vancouver.
playoff games.
Atlanta.
It walks up.
Vancouver, New York as well, right?
Yeah, so like the last 2 matches of the season, regular season, is going to be New York versus Vancouver, Shock versus Valiant. Compared to Stage 3 finals, Stage 3 ending homestand, where we got New York versus Toronto, Atlanta versus Florida. There's a slight change in difficulty right there. But like you were saying, Totem, at least the one match that mattered was the most interesting in regards to Shanghai versus Philly. You know, we got a Shang 9 and they still won. We saw DM Carpe, like you said, because DM destroyed Carpe.
I wouldn't say destroyed, but like
He decisively beat Carpe.
It was
From a,
6-5 in the Widow kills.
But in
Against
a
one
straight
another.
up flexing moment,
Right.
DM destroyed. Because, like, not just Widow versus Widow, DM destroyed, like, oh god, there was one point where, like, Poco threw a bomb up in the air and was falling, and just before it exploded and killed DM, he got a headshot on falling Poco and then hid behind a wall so he didn't die. I'm like, that's flexing. That is the epitome of flexing. So, that was great.
I will take 2 seconds to say that the Guangzhou Shanghai game was very fun. It was very interesting. It was a 3-1, right? Or 4. It was a 3-1, but just because it was that much of an upset, it was fun to watch. At least until map 4, where Charge put in, I think, the backups.
Yeah, they had Only Wish and Rise, who were their academy former academy team, 2-way players.
I see what you did there.
Because now they have a new one, which is T1W.
But I will say, out of all of this, the most entertaining team to watch was the Toronto Defiance. Like, they sucked. They sucked hard.
Hey, at least Mangachu got them a win.
They got the booze they wanted.
They got the. They are the Dallas Fuel of last year. People are cheering for them, but they're just not winning. You know, like Mangachu comes in, already leads the league in hammer kills in games. Torb hammer kills. You know, Logic is
with 2, right?
Yeah. Logic is getting, what was it? He has the most scoped critical hits in Stage 3 on a Widowmaker. Or percentage. I forgot the exact stat that Captain Planet did. but he's basically getting the most scope kills. Mangachu on Pharah is a thing of beauty. It's just none of the rest of the team is playing that well to go along with their play. So they were probably the most fun team to watch. They just lost a lot.
You do wonder if they're able to actually like harness these players into some sort of run for the play-in bracket, because I know Logix is somebody who could single-handedly get you into a win. Mangachu has proven to be really, really like capable. I just at this point I feel like it comes
like I don't know if they're mathematically out. They're out. They're in 18th place for the season playoffs right now. They're 7-14 with a -22 map differential. They're out of the playoff hunt. Like it would they could probably still mathematically make it, but math is not in their favor. So it'd be nice, and maybe they could do something about getting into the Stage 4 playoffs if we had a Stage 4 playoffs. But since we don't have that anymore, they're basically just working towards next year at this point.
Yeah, I will say, I feel like Yakpon has redeemed himself on the main tank position, with him, getting a lot more playtime over Sharik here in the recent weeks. But, we got to look ahead to this week and the Stage 3 playoffs. We have some very interesting matches, just due to the fact that, we have two former 0-7 teams. So we have the Outlaws, we have the Valiant in there, of course, you have your heavy favorites. So we kick things off on Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific time when we have our number 2 seed, which are the Vancouver Titans, going up against the 7th seeded Houston Outlaws. So I'm going to set the table, and I want to get your guys' predictions on how this is going to play out. So these two teams did meet in Stage 2, and it was the Titans that secured that win 3-1 in that prior meet-in. But, Houston, they rebounded off of an 0-7 stage to finish 5-2 in Stage 3. Of course, they had that major win over the New York Excelsior here lately. So, looking at this, the Outlaws have opted not to run 3-3, primarily. They've been trying to stick to their strengths. They've been doing a lot of DPS comps. Muma's been playing a lot of Wrecking Ball. And you have the Titans, who we all pretty much expected to be in the position that they're in. Everyone knew, regardless of if there was going to be, any sort of, minor iterations to the 3-3 comp, the Titans were still going to be one of the elite teams, and that's still proven to be the case. But there have been times when these DPS-centric compositions have given them trouble. But this has been a team that has been a little bit slower to adapt to the meta. But despite just very recently subbing in Stitch over Janu in order to bring in Sombra to run the Sombra Ana composition, even with the limited time from the Titans, I still feel like the Titans have a better grasp at the Sombra play than some of these other teams that have been practicing it a lot more than they have. So it's an interesting case for the Titans. So looking at this, who are you guys favoring in this particular match? Do you feel like the Outlaws will be able to ride that momentum after their rebound stage, so to speak?
So I'm not going to be dumb here. I think Vancouver wins, but I think Houston has maybe a 1 in 8 chance. I think there is to steal something that Alphonse said in our show last night. There's a couple universes where Houston manages to pull this off. They're extremely few.
About the same amount of chances that the Avengers had of beating Thanos. 1 in 11,700,000.
There's a chance that they could do this, but it's not at all a high one. I think that easily you have to go with Vancouver just because it's Vancouver. We have the best synergy in the league, along with so many great players in front. And Houston's Houston. We know that Houston tends to choke when it comes to these big moments. Even at their peak, last year, like they never made it past like the first round of the playoffs.
Mhm.
So I think Vancouver takes it. I think Vancouver takes it 3-1. I think it's a 3-1 win. I will say, I'll go on record right now. If Houston manages to win this game, I'll get a jersey and wear it on here. I'll get that Jake jersey. But like, I just don't see it happening.
I mean, worst case scenario for Vancouver, they only win 3-1. I think if they hadn't shown and flexed the Stitch, coming out and what he can do on McCree to counter the Jake Farah, who had been dominating because a lot of teams were not switching off and dealing with the Farah. Well, Vancouver just was about a week late on switching off goats when they needed to counter the DPS lineups they were facing. But as soon as they did that, we saw what happened. They went back to this is the Titans we know. So I mean, don't expect them to run goats. I mean, do we even think they'll play Janu? Because they didn't really when Stitch was in. I think Janu only played 2 maps that whole series. Because I remember I started him in Unlimited.
Yeah, fantasy-wise, he's not a good start this week.
Yeah,
No,
I'm fully expecting Solminsu and Stitch, and I would highly recommend, like, if you feel confident in that, to pick Stitch for your daily league because his contract is going to be really cheap.
Yep. And so, like, it's one of those things where it is smart to pick the Titans to 4 of this. They got their confidence, they got their swagger back. They did lose, and they lost, I think, for the same reason that the Outlaws beat the Shock in the first loss for the Shock, was because they just didn't switch it up. They just let a Farah dominate them and let the DPS dominate them and didn't counter it. They countered it now, and I don't think, because we all know if Houston tries to go goats on Vancouver, it's like a Major League Baseball team going up against a single A team at that point. So there's no shot. So they have to go DPS. And if Titans bring out Stitch on his McCree or whatever they decide to put him on, they're going to dominate as well. So, yeah, 4-0 for me with the Titans.
Totem, what are you thinking?
I'm expecting a 4-0. It's just a matter of if Stitch is primarily going to be playing Sombra, or if they're going to rely on the hit scan. If he's like purely on hit scan, I think it gets a little bit shakier, just due to the fact that he's looked a lot better on a Sombra across the board. But I really feel like you look at the frontline battle, and you just see the amount of space that Bumper is able to create, and I feel like there's just a lot more chaos, and the Titans are just going to thrive in that. But looking
I have a bold statement for this match, by the way. At least one map, Bumper will not be playing. I think they will go with Janu as the hamster for at least one. Because Janu has proven to be the better hamster than Bumper.
So if we see triple DPS, you expect Janu to be in the rotation.
Yes. So I could see that happening. It's not that bold of a prediction, let's be real. But, it's a prediction.
Or Bumper will be in there and he'll just play Hanzo. Or, another hero that he hasn't played.
Oh god, if he goes in and plays like Widowmaker and he outsnipes Linkser just needs to delete his profile.
Well, there you go. So also on Thursday at 8 p.m. Pacific time, we have the top seed, that being the New York Excelsior, going up against the 8th seed in the Shanghai Dragons. So these two teams did meet in Stage 2, and that was New York picking up the win 3-0 in that one. And, when we look at these teams, New York were definitely pretty quick at adapting to the meta, at least for the Korean teams. The Dragons had always kind of been the people that kind of like kickstarted the whole Sombra play in the Overwatch League, and they've been relying a lot on the Sombra and Pharah play from them. So, with the Dragons, they recently went out and they acquired Envy. So that's kind of like added another element to their play. But I feel like they're still trying to work their way around that acquisition and just bring in D.Va into, their composition. So I feel like that's still a work in progress at this point. But a lot of this is going to come down to the Sombra play, because both of these two teams do play a lot of Sombra, and when you look at the team fight wins in this stage, if there's a Sombra and an Ana on the field, New York have the winningest team fight percentage in the Overwatch League. I want to say it was like mid 70%, which was astronomical compared to some of the other teams out there. So we're going to be keeping a close eye on how SBB is doing. We'll see how Dean's Pharaoh play is going to be, and like how much disruption he's going to be able to get, how much separation he can make with the concussion or the concussive blast. But one of the key things to keep an eye on is, in the past, when New York is going up against these really good Pharahs, Libero has ended up having to swap off of his primary role in order to go to D.Va, of all things, which is not a comfort pick by any stretch of the imagination. So this is a very intriguing match where, should the Pharah be that disruptive for Shanghai, there's very good upset potential in this particular match.
I honestly, who cares? I actually think I'm gonna pick Shanghai to upset this. In that, I think that I agree with you that SPB's Sombra has been their biggest weak point so far. Not that it's been awful, but he's definitely looked shaky at times, and he plays in a very predictable way where he's very easy to pick. And I think just that if you're gonna go pound for pound, SPB versus that Ding Pharah, I think that Ding takes care of him, no question. I do wonder about the rest of it though, because it's like New York is just such a stacked team besides this that it's not a hard thing to imagine them just completely stomping.
No. I mean, let's be real here. New York is undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we even contemplating New York losing this one to a Dragons team that had to have a play-in match the last game of the stage, or their last game of the stage? Like, the Shanghai squeaked into the playoffs, and they're going up against an undefeated team. Just no. I know SBB has not been the strongest in regards to Sombra play, but they haven't needed him to be that strong. Like, let's be real. And if they want to, they can just run goats against them, and they will probably just do fine. You're not gonna downgrade playing Meko and Mono on the tank line.
See, the other thing about them is like we're gonna go with like the New York is undefeated. The hardest team they've played is they played London twice.
Okay, then why the hell is Houston in the playoffs?
Again, Houston won because of a supremely easy schedule. But like, saying that like New York is undefeated, like they haven't played necessarily a top tier or even like a top 25% team this whole state.
So, it's not like this is a random stage though. Like, they're 19-2 for the season, and their only two losses came against Atlanta. So are you saying they haven't played a good team yet this season? Like, they have a plus 48 map differential. They have the second best record overall for the entire season, and they lost to Atlanta twice for some random reason. Like, they are gonna win this one, and it's gonna be a 4-0. I fully expect Thursday to just be a boring day of Overwatch, because I don't think Shanghai has struggled. Like, they struggled with the fusion. Like, we saw a Shang 9 on numerous occasions this week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're just not there. And I can't see it. I just can't. So that's just me.
Yeah, I know for me, I have this one like 80-20 in favor of NYXL. I think the Sombra Pharaoh play can secure at least one map for Shanghai Dragons, but just looking at how well Mono has played throughout the season and the level of consistency that he's had, Gamsu's been doing good, but I feel like he's just gonna get drowned out, for comparison's sakes here. But if he's able to match what Mono is doing, this will definitely be a lot more interesting. But chances are it's probably gonna be either for Overwatch or we'll have quick 3-1 matches in both of these series, which would lead into Friday, which has two very interesting games. So we start off at 6 p.m. Pacific time with the 4 versus 5 match. So we have the San Francisco Shock going up against the Seoul Dynasty. Now, these two teams did play already this stage, and the Shock 4-0'd the Dynasty. In that meeting, the Dynasty opted to just mirror 3-3 composition against the Shock. That did not work. They also, tried to do the substitution trick against the Shock. That didn't work. So, just to, revert the clock back a little bit here, this is what we saw from Seoul, lineup-wise. They opened up in the first half with Marvel, Munchkin, Zunba, Illicit, Toby, and Rio Jaehan. They quickly lost 2 maps, so then they made some substitutions for the remainder of the series. So the only person that they kept in their lineup in that series was Rio Jaehan. So, at that point, they basically went with, Fitz, Michelle, Fleta, Jexay at that point. So, I don't know what look we're going to get from the Dynasty in this series, but if I had to put my money on anything, I would imagine it's probably going to be Fitz, Michelle, Marvel, Fleta, Jexay, and Hailey, which would be the more aggressive of the lineups that they could do. Obviously, not having Fisher kind of puts a wrench in, the whole substitution thing and having, 2 completely separate teams. So it might just be a case of potentially, subbing out a specific line as opposed to substituting everyone out in this case. But it is worth stating that, we've looked at the Shock this stage, and this is not a team that plays Ana at all. The way that they have dealt with the Sombra play this stage has been by having Rascal on Baptiste, and that kind of gives them their own flavor, or their own unique attributes in the current meta, and it's going to be interesting to see if that is going to pay off in the playoffs, because we have seen Shock look very shaky throughout this stage. They do not look like a top 3 team in this current meta, which has evolved over the course of the stage. And if one thing has been the bane of the Shock's existence, it has been Sombra play. We always joke about, how tilted Super gets going up against these Sombras, and, when you look at the Seoul Dynasty, they have Fitz and they have Michelle, both who have played a pretty mean Sombra throughout this stage, so I don't know which one's going to get the nod in this case, but I would not be surprised to see them switch it up a little bit in this situation. So, how close do you think this series is going to be, knowing that, the Dynasty have looked fairly strong, but the Shock have kind of been, I don't want to say getting complacent, but they have definitely lost some of that punch, or that power in their punches, so to speak.
I'll go first on this one. I think the Shock might throw some weird things at us. They've had time off. I think you could start maybe seeing them dive into their DPS logjam. Breakout striker, breakout architect. Get a Pharah player out there. You know what I mean? Do something along those lines. Because architect, if memory serves me, this was back in season 1. but Architect was a pretty decent Pharah player.
Yeah.
Rascal's
a decent one too, I would imagine.
Rascal is decent at everything.
Rascal's the better pick between the two, though. If we're
Rascal's probably the better pick, but like they could throw some wonky comps at us. Who knows? Sinatraa might not be playing. Like, I mean,
he'll be playing Reinhardt.
Zarya,
he'll be on Ryan.
No. But like, if they're not playing Zarya, maybe they put in Striker. You know, something like that. This is probably the one where if I'm to pick an upset, this is the upset I'm picking.
Well, upset based on seeding.
Yes, on seeding alone. I still don't consider the Shock. They're borderline top 4 team this stage. Borderline. Like, I think Seoul could probably be in the number 4 spot. It's just I don't know what their team actually is. Like, the only thing I know for sure is that Marvell is going to be their main tank because their other main tank retired. Like, that's the only thing I know about Seoul. Like, I don't know anything about synergy, who works best together, stuff like that, because they change it up all the time. And I'm not going to put Shanghai or Houston up there. The only other team that could even be mentioned would be Valiant, playing at the number 4 spot. So, like, this is one where I think the Shock could get knocked out first round. And I don't know if I'll do that for pick'ems, because the odds are the Shock will win, like, from a betting standpoint. From a betting standpoint, the Shock will probably win. But from, like, using just actual knowledge in my head, the Seoul Dynasty have probably like a 45% chance of winning this. So if I'm doing my pick'ems, I'm picking Shock. If I'm, cheering as a fan, it's probably going to be Seoul to win 3-2. This is probably going to be the best matchup of the whole week, despite what our next matchup is. But this will probably be the best matchup of the whole week. Or, sorry, first round. I don't want to spoil anything. But
yeah, because I'm talking about for the week. Like, there's going to be
round.
a couple more matches.
Yeah, best match of the first round of the playoffs.
All right. Well,
I'm just trying.
I'm good.
He's thrown the gauntlet my way. I agree with you though that I think it's a 55-45 San Francisco versus Seoul. I think that my gut says San Francisco, but it doesn't feel great about it. I still we meme about it, but I can see a world in which they get themselves in a corner against good Sombra play from Seoul and they don't know how to get out. I agree. I hope that we get these multi-DPS looks that you're talking about, Ed, because I think maybe New York, nobody else has a more stacked DPS lineup than the San Francisco Shock. So
I mean, I guess one thing that and I'm just purely drawing a blank on this, is who's the Sombra player for them? Is it Sinatraa?
Right now it's Sinatraa. I feel like I have some memory of Rascal playing Sinatraa in the past. I'm sorry, Rascal playing Sombra in the past.
Well, if you're putting Sinatraa on Sombra, why is Choyobin in there? The way this generally works is your flex tank is the Sombra. You're not running a flex tank and Sombra to be the most effective Sombra goats, or whatever you want to call it, 3-2-1. You need to figure out a new lineup if you're going to be sticking Sinatraa on Sombra, where Choyobin is not in there.
Choi has a total of 17 minutes and 12 seconds played on Sombra, compared to 21 hours and 41 minutes on D.Va.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and not have him in there. As much as I love Choi in there, it doesn't fit the 3-2-1 Sombra meta that we're seeing now. So yeah, bring in somebody like a Striker or an Architect, or something of that nature to, they don't. Maybe Architect or Striker can play a good Sombra, because I would still want a Zarya in there, and you'll be hard pressed to find a better Zarya. Like, there's other people in the considerations with Sue and whatnot, but like, he's top 3, so not just top 3 Zarya in the league right now. And if you want a Zarya in there, you want Sinatra in there. So maybe Striker and Architect come in on Sombra. Who knows what they're gonna do?
Fantasy wise, I think we can all agree Marvel and Super will be decent fantasy starts.
Yep. Marvel, Super. I still think Rascal. I don't know how much Rascal's gonna cost, but he's always like a wild card, because like he's gonna get the damage, but he's also gonna get the healing when they play Baptiste. So who knows what's gonna go there? And like, Super loses a little bit of value fantasy wise, because if they're running bunker comps, Orissa's not really that known for putting out high fantasy numbers. Like, Orissa's there to put the shield there and to, suction cup, ball, whatever you want to call it, people for the Bastion that usually is Sinatra. So who knows what's going to happen? But yeah, Marvel is, I think, the Stone Cold lock. Yes, Stone Cold, like the Stunner. To play on Friday.
Which would lead into our final Run of 8 match at Friday, 8 p.m. Pacific time, that has our 3 seed, the Hangzhou Spark, going up against the 6 seeded Los Angeles Valiant. Alright, so we've seen these two teams face each other twice already this season, and both times it went to a 5th map. The Spark did take both of the matches. They have actually taken all the maps on control in the series, all 4 of them. Valiant have done pretty good on Assault. Everything else is kind of like, they're tied up, so they're even. So, like, both of them have a very dominant, game mode, and then they've split the rest. Now lately, we have seen the Spark trying to address some issues that they've had with some of these CPS competitions, so they have been moving Godsby over to the Sombra here as of late, but this is a team that has fared very well against Sombra play. Better than really any other team that's in the playoffs this stage, so that could definitely come into play here. But, when we look back at that prior meeting between these two teams, there was that classic C9 on Ilios by the Valiant that was basically their undoing. Like, there were a lot of, minor mental mistakes that can easily be fixed, but both times these two teams have, played each other, it's gone down to the wire, and I don't think there's necessarily, a clear-cut favorite, despite, the 2-0 series lead, so to speak, for the Spark. But, the Valiants are, really the ultimate wildcard team in these playoffs. They've had that upset potential. They've really taken Spark the distance. So this series in particular could just come down to if the Valiant could take a control map, or, if the Spark can get the upper hand on Assault, where, the other team has kind of had a stranglehold so far in the series.
I think it's another 55-45. For me, I think LA has, a peak where they could really take the series. But, like you're saying, there's been too many little mistakes, too many parts where just stuff hasn't clicked the right way. And Hangzhou has looked very sharp over the past couple of weeks. I think that if you're going to go player by player, I think if it's not even, Hangzhou slightly edges them out on almost all of them, except for maybe the Kari versus Bebe argument. It's a maybe, Ed. It's a maybe.
Well, it depends on what they're on. On
Ana specifically.
Sure. Maybe.
And we're going with the idea that we're going to see much more Ana than we're going to see Zen. Hangzhou takes it. I think it's another 3-2. I think that we're going to see another one of these LA mistakes that just barely loses them the map.
I have more faith in the Spark than most. I think they win this one 3-1, and I think they ride the back of the Winston God himself, Gouchway, which has been like one of their defining things when dealing with Sombra is, Gouchway is just so good on that Winston that it's spreading the team apart. Which, if you can have a team that's spread apart a little bit more, the Sombra is not as effective, especially with EMPs and whatnot. But they need to figure out something to do with their own Sombra play, because Godsby plays a good Sombra unless it comes to an EMP. Then he's just god awful.
When he catches the air.
Yeah, he is about as good on EMPs as Nene is on grabs.
Is he Yang Zhao Long? Is he Yang Zhao Long equivalent, or?
Ooh.
No, that's a different bar.
Yeah, it's a different.
It's
low
like
bar
completely off the scale. It's so far.
Yeah, where I think actually they take this one is gonna be the main support matchup. As much as I love Custa, IDK is I think just that much better than Custa in this. So I'm thinking 3-1 for Spark. Spark are my dark horse to win everything, and honestly, I really want to see the Spark versus the Titans in the next round. Because they both win. They're playing each other, regardless of what anything else happens. So
I agree. I think it would be really fun to see Hangzhou go that far. It would be nice to get another new team to win a stage playoff. I mean, New York would be a new team as well, but I think Hangzhou, like, if they beat Valley, I think that they can ride the momentum through to possibly a finals appearance.
Yeah, New York probably has I wouldn't say roughest path to get to the finals, but they have their first matchup, and then the next round they're either more than likely they're gonna face either the Shock or the Seoul Dynasty, and that is gonna be tough for them. Whereas, I don't know. It's hard to put. I don't have faith in New York in the playoffs. It's hard to have faith in them in the playoffs. Period.
Do we have any more faith in Seoul in the playoffs, though?
They beat New York.
I was gonna say, we've seen that play out.
They actually beat New York last stage in the playoffs. So yeah, I have more faith in Seoul Dynasty than I do in New York Excelsior to win a playoff game. So, yeah.
So with that being said, I want to get your guys' thoughts on who you're expecting to make that Stage 3 finals and who you are ultimately booking to take home the title for this stage.
Okay, I'll go first, since Ramses didn't jump the gun on that one.
I'm excited to get made fun of again.
Because you're probably going to say Shanghai.
Nah, dude, Houston takes the whole thing. I'm calling it right here, right now.
No.
This is where we take your crown.
I think it's going to be Vancouver versus New York, with Vancouver taking it. I just, it's hard for me not to bet against Vancouver, especially in a non-GOATS meta where they don't have to deal with the Shock's GOATS. So I'm going to go Vancouver versus New York in the championship game all the way through.
But what would you put the split at for that one in regards to the odds?
70-30 in Vancouver favor. I want to say, Vancouver versus the Spark in the second round, as fun as it would be to say that, I think Vancouver would smoke the Spark. And the only way they don't face the Spark is if the Valiant beat them and then they play Soul or the Shock, and I think they can beat the Soul or the Shock in non-goats, because I think if they go up against the Shock, they're gonna not play goats to get in. So, like, I honestly probably put the Vancouver, just from the start of the playoffs, a 70% favorite to win the whole thing before any matches are played, anything. Vancouver, I'm putting at a 70% chance to win the whole thing. So, yeah, I just can't bet against them.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I feel like I'm in a similar boat. I want another team to make a run at it, but how do you bet against Vancouver and New York? Granted, we've bet against Vancouver and New York, and we've seen that happen the last.
Like, New York, you can bet against because the thing is they've effed up a lot when it comes to playoffs. So, like, they have a history of choking. The Titans don't. So, New York, though. New York, if you came up to me on Monday and, like, I couldn't watch any of the games, and you're like, New York lost in the first round, I legit would not be like, oh my god, this is the biggest upset ever. But, you know, it would be an upset. But I would not be super, super shocked. If you told me the Titans lost in the first round, I would be in, like, dumbfoundedness on what happened.
I think Titans do take it. It'll really, what you said about Stitch earlier, I think it's going to come down to how well they excel. Part of the plan, how well they excel in the 3 DPS meta. Now it seems like now they've gotten all their ducks in a row. It's like, crap, we have to be scared again. Like, the rest of the league has to be scared of Vancouver again because they've immediately turned the corner in the meta, and now they're coming for all of us.
Yeah, like I talked about this with New York. They've lost 2 matches. Well, there's only one team who's lost fewer matches than them.
Mm-hmm.
That's Vancouver. They've lost 2 matches, including the playoffs. Only one in the regular season, and the one they lost in the playoffs was probably the best game of Overwatch we've ever seen in the Stage 2 finals. Like, yeah, it's impossible to go against the Titans.
Yeah, I too am expecting Excelsior Titans. For New York, one of the key things of victory for them, at least to me, is going to be winning the neutral fight. You know, they rely so much on Jonek getting that early pick, and that can definitely come into play. Twilight versus Jonek is a very interesting main support battle, or flex support battle, because both of them have been known to play a lot of Ana this stage, and both of them have posted like 65% team fight win rates when it comes to that Sombra Ana composition. So if I were to put like odds on it, I do have it 60-40 in favor of the Titans. I feel like this one's going to be a little bit closer than their prior meeting that they had earlier in the season. But I'm definitely rooting for, you know, the Spark to ride the wave into the stage finals. I really want to see another team make that. But I will say, like, in the current meta that we have right now, I would not be completely shocked if, you know, NYXL ends up taking it just based on how they look. But we'll see whether or not they can keep that team fight win percentage up, you know, keeping SBB on the Sombra, and how much of an effect Stitch is going to have, because Stitch is really going to be that piece that keeps the Titans in this throughout the stage playoff. So, who knows, but the upset potential on Saturday across the board is definitely there in regards to, or not Saturday, Friday. Friday's going to be the upset day if there's going to be anything. So there could be any number of possible scenarios that we could see playing out in the semifinals, but looks like for the most part we're all in the same mindset here, with, you know, New York Titans, and we'll see how the Shock do. Like the Shock.
I think the team we're all kind of down on a little is the Shock.
Yeah.
And not because, like, any of us would be surprised. Like, I don't think any of us would be shocked if they, let's say, they made the finals. It would be like none of us would be shocked if, you know, anyone beat them. and it's just like our expectations are actually so low for this team that
Sold low for this team.
no, that was just bad. That's just reaching. Yeah, you're better than that, Ramses.
Is he?
No, he's not.
I
I don't have to call him Lord.
Yeah, we
They
can
put-
just call him Slowpoke.
Yeah.
See, Labasco attached the Bolton at the end of that. It's Lord Ramsay's Bolton, and from how bad I've heard that character is, I'm not excited about it.
Wait, whoa, 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 whoa. Have you not seen Game of Thrones?
No, I have not.
Sidebar totem. We need a new host.
I guess I know what I'm
just
doing this
kicked
weekend.
him off the show. This might be an awkward conversation later, Ramses. But what would you say you do here? Except not watch Game of Thrones. I can't even. Okay, go on.
No, I agree. I think Shock is definitely the team that has the biggest swing potential, where they either could very much underperform and lose that first round matchup, or they perform up to where we know they're capable of and make a run at the stage final.
All right, one question for you guys.
42.
Fantasy MVP for the playoff. Who is your fantasy MVP?
Ooh.
If Vancouver makes a long enough run, I could see Stitch just because his price is so low.
But that's also going to adjust over time.
It will adjust.
I'm
Does
going to
it
say
adjust?
Mono. I think will take it.
Mono was one of mine. I was going Gooshway.
Mm-hmm.
I was going the main tank route as well. Like, it was between Bumper and Gooshway for me. So, you can't go wrong with any of those three.
I definitely
if you
think
can afford them.
I definitely do think Mono, because Mono also we're pretty sure he's going to be in actually all 3 rounds of the playoffs as well.
Yeah.
So
So if you had to pick one support to play, Jonak or Twilight? Right? That's a tough question.
Like, I feel like they've been pretty even. I do think that Jonek's a better Anna. And I'm expecting we're going to see a lot more of that.
See, I was actually picking Jonak because I think he'll play less Anna than Twilight.
I think he'll get more frags than Twilight will for sure.
So it should be good. It should be good matchups this week. Hope I can see them. I think I might actually be missing the ones on Friday.
Will you be at
upset.
Will you be at another birthday, cousin's baptism barbecue party?
No, no. I have a friend flying in from New York on Friday, and then Saturday is my company golf outing. So I will not be sober for 2 days straight.
Who are you,
Sunday,
DeFran?
awesome.
Let's if listeners, when you listen to this, if you can just send up a prayer for Ed's kidneys this weekend or Ed's liver this weekend.
I mean, we're meeting at the bar at 6 a.m. on Saturday.
Oh, it's one of those parties. Oh,
Well, it's a company golf outing. What if you're not having Bloody Marys by 6:30 in the morning? You're doing it wrong. Especially when the company's paying for it.
I'm 22. I've never been a part of corporate America.
I literally did that when I worked in restaurants. Get
I
with
mean,
the
I work-
program.
I'm just digging my hole deeper and deeper today. Jeez.
You are, God. I don't know what we're gonna do with you. God, when BlizzCon comes around, you are gonna be so corrupted. It's gonna be great. Where I'm just gonna start feeding you shots, and then we're gonna do a podcast.
Oh no.
In unfiltered and unedited podcasts at that.
Exactly.
Jeez.
Win-win for everyone.
I don't know if you have Drunk Ed and Drunk Me, possibly, and Drunk Bob all in one podcast.
What about Totem?
Totem seems like a pretty measured person. I'm not worried about Totem.
No. Totem's going to be joining in with the shots.
I mean, I'm gonna have both of my flasks with me, like I always do. So yeah, maybe that'll be like the first episode of Sake Showdown, which I've been wanting to do forever.
See? Dude, I don't even know what that is, but it sounds fun as hell. Because Sake Showdown, I'm assuming involves sake, which I'm game for.
Mm-hmm. So with that being said, look forward to that stuff in, November. But, we are going to close out the show for tonight. So, of course, if you guys want to help us out, one of the best things to do is to leave us a review. It's been pretty quiet, Ed, so why don't you let them know, where exactly they could send us reviews so we can, read them on some of the upcoming episodes.
Alright, so you can show some support. Okay, I'm really bad at this. You can show some support for the show by giving us reviews over on your iTunes or podcasting app of choice. So any feedback or constructive criticism is always welcome. Constructive. Just saying Ed sucks is not constructive.
I think it's pretty constructive.
Listen here, Mr. I don't watch Game of Thrones. You are not allowed to talk about this. So it will help offer us insight into how we can make the show better. Better listening experience for all of you. Ramses, we have a whole listing on where you can find stuff. Do you want to go over that?
Sure. So, of course, we have our weekly podcast listing for all things Overwatch, both general, variety, Overwatch League, Path of Pro, you name it, we got it. And you can find that over on owlendshow.com/OW Recall. We release new episodic listings of every podcast going on in the Overwatch podcast sphere every Sunday night. And it's really easy to keep up to date with it. You can just follow us on Twitter at OW Recall. Get your news, see what we're doing, see what new shows are coming out.
Yeah, and with that being said, I did update the directory. There's 3 or 4 new shows on there as well, so go show them some love. But with that being said, of course, there are a number of different ways how you guys can get a hold of us. So to start off, you can email us over at contact@owlnshow.com. We are also on Twitter at OWL Our website is www.owlnshow.com. We do have our YouTube channel where you can watch the Edenar versus Spider Hammer Torb 1v1, which Edenar stole. And you can just see how many times Ed is looking in a completely opposite direction in Sniper 1v1s.
Oh yeah,
also.
I'm horrible at that. Horrible.
Which to me was honestly the funniest thing spectating. Or just when I was facing you, I was just what is he doing? But anyways, that is at youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. If you'd like to talk to us, you can do so on our Discord at discord.me/OWLNshow. Of course, that place is always hopping. We're very active during the games, and I'm sure we're going to be all over the place this week with the Sage playoffs. If you want to listen to us live, you can do so at twitch.tv/OWLNshow. We are a Twitch affiliate, so whenever you guys want to throw Twitch Prime subs at us, or, throw, the $5 sub at us, we greatly appreciate that. And if you do so, you can earn our network emoticon. So our podcast does stream fairly regularly. We do have 3 podcasts that stream on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So we have Overwatch League Network, that is Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific Time. We have the podcast you're currently listening to, OWL by the Numbers, Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific Time. And then on Wednesday, we have our flagship show, our variety Overwatch show, Heroes Never Die, that airs Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, where you can listen to Ed and I talk anywhere from 2 hours to, 2.5 hours plus. And probably going to be pretty ranty this week if we don't have any sort of announcements, because it's been kind of quiet. And it's been weird. We're expecting stuff, and it's just not happening.
I seriously think there were actual signings and trades that occurred in the Overwatch League on Monday, but they're waiting to announce them for the 222 announcement. Because there's no way we hit the end of the signing period and legit nothing happened. Mm-hmm. That's just not something that would go on. I think they're waiting for 222 to come out, and who knows when it's going to be announced.
Well, we're sure Tizzy got signed, right?
No.
That was
it's reported. It's
by
reported,
the
but
Game
it's
House.
Not official.
Right.
Like something like that. He is officially not on a Contenders team anymore. And you wouldn't drop him from Contenders if he actually wasn't signed for the Overwatch League. Because otherwise he can't play in the Overwatch League till Season 3, and there's no point in releasing him from a Contenders.
Right, so with that being said, we also do have host streams, which run on a flex schedule, so the best way to let you know when we're going live is to just follow us on Twitch and get the notifications there. For the most part, like, we've been a little bit more consistent on Mondays before Overwatch League Network. It's when Ed and I will usually hop on and attempt to play competitive, should my frame rate not drop from 60 to below 10 like it was.
We actually didn't have a bad week this week on Monday. I mean, we went 2-3 with some horrible lag on your parts, and then just main tanks swapping off to be a healer.
Right. And that would, my earbud, blowing out was probably why I didn't actually hear the comms in that match. Because I didn't know that he had swapped until, like, very late into the match. But anyways, if you want another way to support, our podcast network, we do have a Patreon page at patreon.com/OWL network. So we have tiers starting at just $1 a month, so any sort of support you guys can throw our way is greatly appreciated, so you too can join the likes of our Master and Above patrons, Blaze and Bob, Brendan, Josabal, and Owl, in helping our network grow. So thank you guys again for all of the support that you guys throw our way. And of course, you could follow all of us over on social media. Blaze and Bob is not here, so we're not going to shield him. At all.
Nope.
Not
but gonna do any of that.
You can find myself on Twitter at TotallyDrunkCTR. I know Bob's recorded, I'm pretty sure, because they were probably a little bit too hungover after the Atlanta homestand. They were just pulling out a friend at that case. But Ramses, where can our listeners get a hold of you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ramses_OW, where you can see Ed now daily berating me for not watching Game of Thrones so far.
Right? All right. Question. More of a statement, per se.
So it's not a question.
Let me explain to you all why Superman is legit the worst superhero of all time. And this is why DC is in a shit show in regards to their movie. You created a character who can legit do anything and has one thing that can stop him, and it's from another planet. Like, he can do anything. No one can stop him on Earth unless they have kryptonite from another planet. So they always have to, at the start of every Superman movie, it has to be like, okay, are they going to show kryptonite? If they don't, Superman will dominate. But then they're going to come up with some stupid way to come up with kryptonite. And it's just like, you're the worst. This is horrible writing. Whoever thought to give one superhero every superhero ability except invisibility. That's the only thing he doesn't have. It's the worst superhero of all time. Come at me. And I don't even think you guys are both right now trying to come up with an argument, and you're just like,
no, I'm not coming up with an argument.
He makes a point, though. Because it is a good point. Like, a superhero who can do anything, and the only thing that can stop him is a crystal from another planet. Shut up, Superman. You're stupid. Your only other good character isn't even a superhero. He's a billionaire. So I hate you. But you can reach me on Twitter at EdnarOverwatch. And then you could probably reach me on Twitch because I'm going to say this because this Friday and Saturday, I'm going to be streaming raiding in Warcraft on my Twitch account. And that's EdnarOW. So if you want to come in and see drunk Ednar swearing at WoW raid bosses, come check me out over there. Totem, where can they find you?
I mean, I already did mine.
Oh, you already did yours.
Wait,
I was while you were going over all that, I was going over how much I hate Superman.
Yeah. You see, you distracted yourself into
With
not knowing
my
what
hate
we've already
of
covered.
Superman.
Yeah, basically.
He's useless. Useless.
I keep
Okay.
waiting for Ramses to fade into the abyss,
Yeah, like,
and every time
I
I
don't
look
like-
over, it like keeps switching, and it's distracting me.
Well, no, yeah, I'm switching to Windows, but
I'm also waiting for Ramses to have a rebuttal to my Superman is legit the worst.
yeah, I've never liked DC. That's why Marvel's better. But like, I have no complaints. They have no rebuttal.
All right, fair enough.
Again, that's when you write yourself into that much of a corner, the way you get out of that corner again has to be really freaking bullshit.
Yep. But that's also comics.
Hmm.
As a whole, it's just
Well,
like, hey,
It was
we're just gonna create another universe.
well. It's like, hey, it's the 40s. You feel bad. You can't get bread. You have no money to do things. How about we just show a guy who can literally do everything?
Yes. Huh.
So back to Overwatch.
Or we're
Well,
not
I
back to
actually think we're
Overwatch because
signing
we're
off.
wrapping up. So again, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us again on another episode of OWL by the Numbers. This has been episode number 23. I have been your host, Totally Drunk, joined by Edinar and Ramses, and we hope to see you guys back tomorrow night for our flagship show. Up Here's Ever Die, when we rant for 2.5 hours. Roughly. Who knows?
I mean, we went on for like an hour and 40 minutes tonight, and we didn't even have an interview.
Shit happens. But take care, guys.
Take
and have
care.
a good night.
Later.